At my housewarming party, my sister's kid smashed my new TV with a baseball bat. Mom said your place needed character, he laughed. My sister raised her glass. Cheap decorations fit you. I unlocked my phone, froze her moving fund. Then the landlord arrived with papers she had not seen. My name is Devin. I am 33 years old. I run a small freight logistics company in Atlanta, Georgia. 3 trucks, 2 full-time drivers, 1 part-time, and a dispatch operation I run from a converted back bedroom in the house I bought 14 months ago. The house is a 3-bedroom Craftsman in Kirkwood, East Atlanta, on a block that still has a few original families from the 70s and a coffee shop that opened last year and plays jazz on Saturdays. I bought it cash-assisted with an SBA loan and 4 years of savings. I did not inherit anything. I did not borrow from anyone in my family. I paid a broker named Quam $3,200 for 6 months of work, and I closed on a Thursday in March, and I stood in the empty living room that afternoon with a tape measure and a plan, and I thought, this is the one thing no one can take back. I was wrong about the no one can take back part. Not about the house, about the thinking. The TV was a 65-inch old. I bought it the week before the housewarming. It cost $1, $8.47, including mounting hardware and installation. I had the receipt in the kitchen drawer because I keep receipts. That drawer is going to matter later. My sister Vanessa is 37. She is 4 years older than me, and she has been treating that gap as a credential my whole life, the way some older siblings treat birth order as a permanent ranking system that does not update when circumstances do. I will give you 5 specific things so you understand the pattern before you understand the party. When I was 19 and she was 23, I got my first job driving for a regional freight company. I made $14.80 an hour, and I worked nights, and I was proud of it. Vanessa told our mother I was wasting my potential. She was working at a salon at the time. This is not a judgment. I am simply telling you what she said. When I was 24 and bought my first truck, a used Kenworth I found through a fleet auction in Macon, Vanessa told every relative who would listen that I had borrowed the down payment from our Uncle Raymond. I had not. I had saved for 2 years and paid cash for a truck with 180,000 miles on it that I drove for 3 years until it had 290,000. Uncle Raymond has never lent me a dollar. He knew I bought the truck clean, and he said nothing when Vanessa told people otherwise, because that is how the family handles things, which is to let the easier story settle and not disturb it. When I was 28 and the business had 3 trucks and 2 steady contracts, Vanessa applied for a job at a shipping company in Norcross and put me down as a reference without asking me. The hiring manager called my cell on a Tuesday morning. I gave her an honest reference because Vanessa has organizational ability and can manage a schedule when she is focused. She got the job. She kept it for 4 months. When she left, she told people I had helped her get it, which was partially true. But she also told people I had connections at the company, which was not true, and that she had left because the environment was not professional, which I have no way to verify. I stopped expecting the accurate version of events to travel reliably through my family a long time before this. When I was 31 and started looking seriously at buying a house, Vanessa told me I was being impractical. Atlanta real estate was too expensive. I should rent something larger. She had specific opinions about neighborhoods I should consider and specific concerns about Kirkwood, where I eventually bought, that she delivered with the confidence of someone who had done research she had not actually done. I listened to all of it. Then I called Kwame and started the process. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in Decatur with Jalen, who is 10, and with a situation she calls temporary, and has called temporary for going on 3 years. The situation involves a man named Darius who is not Jalen's father and not reliably employed, and not someone whose name I am going to spend much time on. 8 months before the housewarming, Vanessa came to me with a plan. She walked out of the Decatur apartment, away from Darius, into something stable for Jalen. She had a number in mind, $11,000. That was the deposit, first month, and moving costs for a place she had already found in Clarkston. Good school district. Reasonable commute. She had done the research. The plan was real. I did not give her $11,000. What I did was something I thought was smarter. I opened a dedicated savings account at my bank in my name, and I started depositing money into it every month. $300 a month. I told her every time I put money in, I will let you know. When it hits the number, we move you. I called it the moving fund. She called it that too. For 8 months, I transferred $300 a month and texted her the running total each time. The account was in my name. It had always been in my name. I set it up that way because I have run a business long enough to know that money you give away disappears, but money you hold for someone can be managed. I thought I was protecting the plan. The account balanced the night of the housewarming, $2,400, 8 deposits, 8 confirmation texts. What I did not know until a text from my cousin Patrice arrived at 9. 03 p.m. while I was standing in a room with a smashed television was what Vanessa had been telling people about that account. The housewarming was a Saturday in October. I spent 3 weeks on it. Not because I needed approval from 31 people, but because the house deserved a proper introduction, and I am the kind of person who does things the right way when the right way is available to me. I cooked for 2 days. I cleaned the garage and set up a second seating area. I borrowed a long folding table from the church next door whose pastor I had helped move a pallet of donated furniture in July. I strung lights in the backyard because the backyard has an old oak that earns lights, that has been earning them since before anyone I know was born, and I was not going to have my first housewarming without giving that tree its due. Kwame came early and helped me move the couch. My driver, the reliable one whose name I use in the crew to distinguish him from the other two, brought his wife and their daughter and a bottle from a Georgia vineyard I had not heard of that turned out to be excellent. My neighbor Kofi arrived on time with his wife and a tray of food she had made that disappeared in 40 minutes. It was a good party. For the first 90 minutes, it was a very good party. The kind where the food lasts and the conversations find their own rooms and the house does exactly what you built it to do. Vanessa arrived at 7 with Jalen and a bottle of grocery store wine and a smile that had something underneath it. I clocked and filed away without naming. She hugged me at the door. She looked around the living room the way you look at something when you have already decided what you think of it and the looking is just confirmation. She said it was nice. The word nice landed flat, the way a coin lands when it has been dropped and not placed. She moved through the party with a specific quality I recognized from other rooms had shared over the years. She spoke to the relatives who were there. She was pleasant to Kwame. She had a conversation with my neighbor Kofi's wife that went on long enough to look like friendship. She was doing the work of appearing comfortable in a space she had decided before she arrived that she was not going to acknowledge as real. I know this in retrospect. In the moment I clocked it as something and kept moving. Jalen was quiet for the first hour. Quiet in the way kids are quiet when they are waiting for something. He ate 2 plates of food. He sat in the corner of the living room with his phone. He did not speak to any of the adults except once. When my driver Marcus's daughter offered him a piece of cake and he took it and said, "Thank you," with the automatic politeness of a child whose mother has drilled manners into him even when everything else is a situation. I checked on him twice. Both times he looked up and gave me a smile that did not reach his eyes. The second time I noticed the backpack on the floor next to his chair. Youth model, blue grip tape on the handle visible through the unzipped top. I did not think about the backpack. At 8:41 p.m. I was in the kitchen refilling the ice when I heard the sound. It is a specific sound, a television screen breaking, not a crash. More like a sharp exhale, and then the structural sound of something that was holding a shape letting go of it. I have thought about that sound many times since. I walked into the living room. Jalen was standing next to the TV with the bat at his side. The screen had a starburst fracture from center to every edge. 31 people were looking at it. Nobody was speaking. Jalen looked at me. He was not scared. He was checking something. He said what he said about his grandmother, about character, with the casual delivery of a child who has been told a thing enough times to believe it is simply true. My mother said your place needed character. I looked at Vanessa. She was across the room near the back window, wine glass in her right hand, weight shifted onto her left hip. She met my eyes and she raised the glass toward the broken screen like a toast. Cheap decorations fit you. The room did not move. The 31 people who had been eating my food and drinking at my table for 90 minutes went completely still. I looked at her for a moment. Then I looked down at my phone. I want to stop here, because this is the moment everyone expects something loud. A confrontation. An argument. Someone crying or someone shouting or something that justifies the feeling in the room. I did not give them that. I have run a freight operation for 4 years. I know what it means to have a shipment that is already in transit, already on the road, and the only decision left is whether to let it arrive or reroute it. Everything that was going to happen to Vanessa was already in motion before she raised that glass. The glass just told me to stop rerouting. I scrolled to my banking app. I opened the account. I had kept the account open on my phone since Patrice's texts started coming in. The balance, $2,400, 8 deposits. 8 months of transfers I had made in good faith into an account I had always owned. I applied a freeze. The process takes 4 taps if you have practiced it, which I had not, but the interface is clean and I found it in about 40 seconds. The account froze at 8:47 p.m., October 14th, with 31 people still in various states of processing what had just happened in my living room. $2,400, motionless mine. Then I opened my contacts and I typed a text to a man named Alonzo. I want to stop here for a second, because I know what people expect from this moment. They expect the revenge to feel like something. They expect a sensation, a release, the click of something finally locked. I did not feel that. I want to be honest about it. What I felt at 8:47 p.m. in my kitchen while my guests were putting on their jackets was the specific calm of a man who has just completed a task that was already on the list. The task had always been on the list. I just had not known when I was going to run it. The freeze was not a decision made in anger. Anger had nothing to do with it. Anger is a condition of the moment. This was a response pattern, and patterns are long-term things. And long-term things require a long-term calm to address correctly. If you have ever stood in a situation where someone showed you, clearly and in public, exactly who they were and felt not rage but a kind of settling, a specific alignment of what you already knew with what you now had witnessed, this is for you. Stay with me. The landlord is coming. Alonzo is the property manager for Vanessa's building in Decatur. I know Alonzo because I co-signed Vanessa's lease 14 months ago when she first moved in, when Darius's situation was newer and she needed a guarantor with documented income. I signed as guarantor because she asked me to. I kept a copy of the lease in the kitchen drawer next to the TV receipt because I keep paperwork. The lease has a clause. Most leases in Atlanta do. It says the guarantor may submit documented evidence of property damage caused by the tenant or tenant's dependents to the property manager, and the property manager has the right to initiate a lease review within 30 days. The damage does not have to occur at the lease property. I had a real estate attorney review this clause 7 months ago when Vanessa told me Jalen had put a hole in her kitchen wall, and she laughed about it. I typed Alonzo's name. I sent him 2 sentences and the address of my house. Then I put my phone in my pocket, and I walked back to the kitchen, and I poured myself a glass of water and I drank it. The party ended in the next 20 minutes, not dramatically. People gathered their things, hugged me at the door, said it was a beautiful house. A few of them looked at Vanessa on the way out with expressions that did not need translation. Kofi was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and put his hand on my shoulder for a moment without saying anything. That was enough. Vanessa left with Jalen before the last guests were gone. She did not speak to me on the way out. Jalen looked at his shoes. I did not stop either of them. After the door closed, I stood in the living room with the broken television and the lights still strung in the backyard oak and the long folding table covered in half-eaten food. Then I went to the kitchen drawer and I took out the TV receipt and the lease copy and I photographed both of them. Timestamp 9:47 p.m. At 9:03 p.m., while the party was still dissolving, my cousin Patrice had texted me. She is 30, lives in Stone Mountain, and she had been at the party for the first hour before she had to leave for a work shift. She sent me 3 messages in a row with no punctuation between them, the way Patrice texts when she is urgent. Devin, did you know Vanessa has been telling people you already agreed to pay her move? Like fully pay it. She told Aunt Cheryl you set up an account and were putting money in, and when it was enough, you were going to give it to her. She showed people screenshots of your deposit texts. I read all 3 messages standing next to the broken TV before I froze the account. I read them again after everyone left, sitting at the kitchen table with the receipt drawer open in front of me. The deposit texts, the ones I had sent her as confirmation of each transfer. $300 added, running total now $300. Running total now $600. Running total now $900. 8 of them, 8 months, clean and time-stamped. She had taken those texts and shown them to the family as proof of a promise, not as receipts for my own deposits into my own account. As evidence that the money was hers, that I had made a commitment, that when the number hit $11,000, I would hand it over like a closing gift. She had told this story to at least 4 family members. Patrice knew about it because Aunt Cheryl had mentioned it at a family gathering in August, 2 months after the deposit schedule started. Aunt Cheryl had thought I was being generous. She had mentioned it to Patrice the way you mention a nice thing someone did. Patrice had filed it and not said anything to me because she assumed I knew. Because why would Vanessa tell the family something like that if it was not true? She had started calling the money hers 2 months in, before the balance was anywhere near a usable amount, before I had made any decision about anything. She built a story around an account I owned and told the family it was her future. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that, not with anger, with the freight manager's specific quiet. This shipment was already in transit before I knew it had left the dock. The only question now is where it lands. I texted Patrice back. I know now, thank you for telling me. Then I went to bed. I had 2 dispatches in the morning and a client call at 9, and the trucks do not move themselves. Alonzo called me the next morning at 8:15. He is a methodical man. Property managers in Atlanta who have been doing this for 15 years get methodical or they get eaten. He runs 12 properties in the Decatur and Stone Mountain area, and he has a reputation among tenants for being fair and among landlords for being thorough. He called, not texted, because he understood that the 2 sentences I had sent him the night before were the kind that required a phone call. I gave him the full picture in the order it happened. the party, the bat, the 31 people in the room. The specific words Jalen said when he did it, about his grandmother giving permission. Vanessa's response. The photos I had taken after the party ended, time-stamped. The TV receipt, the lease copy, and the clause. He listened without interrupting. This is a quality I have come to associate with competent people across many industries. They do not interrupt because they are building a complete picture, not waiting for the part they already predicted. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. I could hear him turning a page. You kept a copy of the lease. I told him I keep everything. He said the lease clause was enforceable based on what I had described. He would need the photos sent to his email. He would need me to confirm in writing that I was the co-signing guarantor initiating the documentation request. The review process, once initiated, would take approximately 10 days. During that period, he was required to notify Vanessa in writing at her address. She would receive the notification without any advance contact from me because I had not told her anything, and I was not planning to. He said one other thing before he ended the call. He said it the way people say things that are simply facts, without weight placed on any particular word. The clause doesn't specify that the damage has to occur at the lease property. It says caused by the tenant or their dependents. Your documentation is solid. I thanked him. I sent him the photos before I started the truck. Then I drove a route to a client drop-off in Marietta and spent the morning moving freight and did not think about Vanessa until I-285 heading east and the city spread out behind me and my hands had been on the wheel long enough to think clearly. What I thought specifically was this. She had been building a story around my money for 6 months while I was depositing into an account in my name every 30 days. She had been showing my texts to relatives as evidence of a commitment I had not made. She had arranged her plans and her daughter's future around a version of events that required me to be a different person than I am. And none of that was my fault. None of it created an obligation. The only thing it created was a record. I had a better record than she did. That is the freight manager's version of the truth. Whoever has the cleaner manifest wins the dispute. The text from Vanessa came 4 days after the party. I had not reached out. I had not called our mother, had not spoken to any relatives, had not posted anything or sent any message. I went to work. I dispatched the Tuesday Marietta run and the Wednesday Dunwoody pickup, and I made my business deposits, and I did not think about Vanessa until she gave me something to think about. The text was long, 3 full screens. I read it in the cab of the truck outside the yard. She started with Jalen. He was 10 years old. He did not fully understand consequences. She hoped I was not going to hold a child responsible for something he did not have the maturity to evaluate. The framing was generous to her and accurate about him. Jalen is 10 and he did not invent the permission he was given. I noted this part. I was not going to argue with it. She moved to the account. She said she had been counting on that money. She said the way I had texted her updates each month had made it feel like a commitment. She said she had made plans and arrangements based on those updates. She said she had told family members because she believed it was real, because I had never indicated otherwise, because why would she doubt it when I kept confirming the balance every 30 days? This is the part that required the most careful reading. She was not wrong that she had felt confirmed. She was wrong about what was being confirmed. What I was confirming was the deposit, not the destination, not the ownership, not the decision. The text said $300 added and nothing else. She had read a commitment into a confirmation receipt, and then she had told the family her reading was the truth. She ended with the family. Our mother was upset. This was not how families handled things. She needed me to unfreeze the account. She needed to know what I was going to do about Alonzo. She knew about Alonzo. Alonzo had sent the notification in 5 days, not 10. Good man. I read the text twice. Then I set the phone on the seat next to me and looked at the yard through the windshield for a while. 3 trucks, 2 full-time drivers getting their manifests. A Tuesday that looked exactly like every Tuesday I had built toward for 4 years. I picked up the phone and typed one sentence. I will call you Thursday. Her reply came in 4 minutes. Thursday is fine. Let me know what time. 4 minutes. She had been watching the phone. She had a response ready because she had been preparing for this conversation since the night Alonzo's letter arrived. She had spent 4 days working out what she was willing to say and what she was willing to give and what she expected in return. She thought Thursday was a negotiation. She thought I was calling to find terms. I was not calling to find terms. I was calling to close the account. My friend Kwame is a real estate broker, yes, but he also has a law degree he does not practice. He passed the bar in 2018 and then decided property was more interesting than litigation and pivoted, which I have always thought was an excellent decision. He is 36 and meticulous, and he does not give opinions he has not thought through. On Wednesday evening, I sat across from him at a bar in Little 5 Points, and I spread 3 things on the table between us. The account statement, Printed, freeze timestamp at the bottom. 8:47 p.m., October 14th, the TV receipt, and $40. And the lease document, the guarantor section highlighted, with Alonzo's notification letter paperclipped to the back. Kwame picked up each one. He read them the way he reads documents, which is completely, without skimming, with occasional small sounds that mean he is processing. When he finished, he set the papers down and picked up his drink. The account is unambiguous. Your name, your funds, your freeze. She has no legal claim to it. The text she showed people are confirmation receipts for your own deposits, not a contract. He tapped the lease copy. The clause is enforceable. Alonzo is doing it right. The notification triggers a 30-day review period. During that period, her lease status is under formal evaluation. She cannot sign a new lease at another property while a review is open on an existing one. Most landlords won't approve a tenant with an open review. I understood what that meant. The apartment in Clarkston, the good school district. The plan she had built around my money and told the family was real. She could not move into it while the review was open. And the review would stay open as long as Alonzo had documentation to support it. What do you need from Thursday? Kwame asked. I thought about it. Not long. I need her to understand what she did and what it cost. I do not need her to agree with me. I do not need her to apologize. I just need the record to be accurate. Kwame nodded. He picked up the account statement and looked at the freeze timestamp one more time. 8:47 p.m. He set it down. She raised the glass at what, 8:45? About that. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said the one thing only Kwame could say, which is not a warm thing or a gentle thing, but it is the most useful thing. You were already moving before she finished the toast. Thursday. My kitchen. 11 a.m. I had cleaned the kitchen that morning without planning to. Not for her. Just because a clean surface is the right surface for a conversation that is going to be documented. The 3 papers were on the counter behind me. The account statement, the TV receipt, and Alonzo's notification letter. In order. Face down, Vanessa came alone. She had dressed for it, which I noticed and did not comment on. She sat in the chair across from mine, the one that faces the window, and she put her bag on the table beside her the way you put something down when you want it close. She looked at the kitchen the way she had looked at the living room at the party, assessing, calculating, deciding how to receive it. I set 2 coffees down. I sat across from her, between us, the account statement. Face up, freeze timestamp in the lower left corner, 8:47 p.m., October 14th. She looked at it for a moment. Her expression did not change in any dramatic way. It changed in the small way expressions change when someone sees something they had hoped would look different in person. She looked up at me. You want to explain the account to me? I kept my voice where I keep it when I am dispatching a tight window run. Level, no heat. Room for the other person to speak without feeling cornered. Cornered people do not give you useful information. She started with the money. She had been counting on it. She had made plans. The Clarkston apartment needed the deposit by the 15th, and she did not have it now, and I needed to understand what I had done to her timeline. I let her finish. Then I put the TV receipt on the table next to the account statement, $1,847. The installation timestamp. The purchase date, 6 days before the party. That comes out first. Her jaw shifted slightly. She looked at the receipt. Then she looked back up. Jalen is a child. He is. He also had a bat in a backpack at my housewarming. I kept my hands flat on the table. Someone put it there. She did not answer that. She moved instead. She said our mother had been worried about me. She said I had always had a way of cutting people off when I felt threatened. She said the family was watching how I handled this. Self-justification ladder, rung 4. After everything I've done for this family, the family is watching. She had rehearsed this part. I could hear the rehearsal in it. I let the sentence sit in the room. Then I picked up the lease notification, Alonzo's letter, and I set it on top of the other 2 documents. 3 pieces of paper, each one printed, each one dated. She looked at the letter. I watched her read it the way you watch someone read something they hoped they would not have to read. The review stays open until Alonzo closes it. I said, he closes it when the documentation is resolved. The documentation includes the lease copy, the party photos, 31 people who were present, and a TV receipt that has not been paid. She looked up from the letter. Her voice had changed register. You're going to cost me the Clarkston apartment. You cost yourself the Clarkston apartment at 8:41 on a Saturday night. The room was quiet. She tried once more. She leaned forward and her voice went to the place it goes when she needs something. The lower register, the one that has worked on me before. She said she was sorry about the TV. She said Jalen got carried away. She said she would pay me back. She just needed time, and she needed the account unfrozen because the deposit deadline was the 15th. I looked at her for a moment, just long enough. Then I picked up the 3 documents. I stacked them neatly. I set them on the counter behind me, face down. The account stays frozen. I will apply the balance toward the TV cost when the lease review resolves. If there is anything left after that, we can talk. I stood up. The conversation was over. I did not say anything else because there was nothing else to say that the documents had not already said better. She sat at my table for a moment after I stood. She picked up her coffee and set it down without drinking it. Then she stood, and she picked up her bag and she walked to the door. Her hand was on the doorknob. She turned back. She was on rung 5 now, the last rung, and she said what people say when they have climbed there. "You've always thought you were better than us." I looked at her from across my kitchen. "I think I built something, and I think you tried to take it." She left. The door closed behind her. Not loud, just closed. Alonzo sent me the formal resolution notice 11 days later. The lease review had concluded. The documentation was sufficient. Vanessa's lease in Decatur would not be renewed when it expired in February. She had 90 days to vacate. The notice had been delivered to her address by certified mail, which meant she had to sign for it, which meant there was a timestamp on her receiving it. I read the email at my desk in the converted back bedroom, between dispatching a Marietta run and reviewing a contract for a new client in Dunwoody. I read it once. Then I opened the property folder and added it to the back. The Clarkston apartment had already gone to another family. Patrice told me when she found out, which was about a week after the lease notice. She heard it from an aunt who heard it from someone at church who knew the Clarkston landlord's property manager. The landlord had run Vanessa's rental history during the review period, seen the open formal notice, and passed. He had passed within 48 hours of seeing it. He did not call Vanessa to explain. He simply gave the unit to the next applicant on his list. The plan she had built around my account and told the family was real had a specific end date. It ended 48 hours after a property manager in Clarkston ran a standard background check. I did not learn this with satisfaction. I want to be precise about that, because I think the shape of this kind of story makes people expect a particular feeling at the end, a clean arrival at some version of justice that feels like relief. That is not what I felt. What I felt was closer to what you feel when you close out a freight contract that cost you more than it should have, and you are glad it is closed, and you do not want to run the same route again. Aunt Cheryl called me. She had heard the Clarkston news. She said she was sorry things had gotten to where they got. She said Vanessa was struggling. She said she hoped I would find a way to keep the family together. I told her I was working on it. I did not say what I was working on because what I was working on was the Dunwoody contract and the Marietta route schedule and not this. Patrice texted, "You good?" I texted back. She sent a thumbs up. That was enough. The $847 came out of the frozen account. I transferred it on the same day the formal resolution notice arrived. Clean close. The remaining $553 I transferred to a savings account in Jalen's name. Actually, his no conditions custodial arrangement, access at 18. He is 10 years old. He did not design this. He swung the bat because an adult told him it was permitted and the adult was not me. I wrote one sentence in the transfer memo field, for later. He will not understand it for 8 years. That is fine. Some things are better understood from the other side of them. When you have enough of your own life built to see clearly what someone else's choices cost them. The house is the same house. The oak in the backyard still earns its lights. The TV is a new one, same size, different brand. Mounted at the same angle because I measured before I mounted and I got it right the first time. I kept the receipt for the new one too. Same drawer. Kwame came over 3 weeks after the Thursday meeting. He brought takeout from a Jamaican spot in Edgewood and we ate at the kitchen table and he asked how it sat with me, all of it. I told him it sat the way most things sit when they are finished, quiet, a little heavier than expected, already starting to become past tense. He said something I have thought about since. He said the reason people like Vanessa do what they do is not because they do not understand the difference between yours and mine. It is because they have decided that the difference does not apply to them. That someone who loves them should not be keeping a tally. That the act of keeping track is itself a betrayal of what family is supposed to mean. I said, you can love someone and still own what you built. He said yes, but you have to be willing to show them you mean it. I did not argue with that. My mother called twice in the weeks after Thursday. I answered the second call. She was not angry at me. She was not defending Vanessa. She was a woman who had watched 2 of her children arrive at a place she did not have the map for, and she was asking me to help her find the road back. I told her I was working. She asked about Vanessa. I said Vanessa was working through some things, and I did not have anything new to tell her. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You always were the one who kept records." I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. I could hear 2 things in it simultaneously. I could hear a criticism that my habit of documentation was a coldness in me, a way of treating family like a ledger. And I could hear something else, something older in her voice, closer to recognition. Like she had known this about me since I was 19 and driving freight at night, and she had never known whether to call it a strength or a flaw, and she still did not know. Maybe neither does she, maybe neither do I. The trucks run. The dispatches go out at 6 a.m. and I track them from the back bedroom that used to be storage and is now an office with a proper desk and a window that looks out on the street. The coffee shop plays jazz on Saturday mornings. Kofi's kids ride bikes on the block. The oak tree in the backyard holds whatever weight you put in it. The house does what a house is supposed to do. It holds the shape of a life without asking anything back. That is enough. It was always going to be enough. I just had to finish paying for the right to say so. If you have ever built something with your own hands and your own time and someone in your family decided that because you built it, they had some claim to it, because you love them and love is supposed to mean access, you already know what this story is about. You know the specific texture of watching someone treat your effort as infrastructure, of being generous in a way that gets quietly converted into an obligation, of keeping records not because you were planning anything, but because you are the kind of person who keeps records. And then one October evening you found out that the records were the only thing between you and a story someone else had been telling about your money. You know what it feels like to freeze an account at 8:47 p.m. and feel nothing dramatic about it. Just a task completing. Just the manifest closing. You do not owe anyone a piece of something you made whole. You do not owe them the account. You do not owe them the shortcut around the consequences of what they did. You do not owe them the version of yourself that absorbs everything and says nothing and keeps making deposits into accounts they were already calling theirs. Keep your receipts. Keep the lease copies. Keep everything in the drawer. Not because you are planning a fight, because you already know somewhere in the back of a very quiet room inside yourself that the fight is probably coming. And a prepared person does not need to raise their voice. Share this with someone who needs it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.